All right, I thought this could be a fun idea for a video. This is the top 10 MVP candidates of 2023 so far. Obviously, there's still plenty of time for really any of these candidates, I think, to potentially win the award. It's so up in the air. But there's been, 10 players that I'm going to put on this list. I should mention I am only doing quarterbacks. Now, we'll do the quick reasoning for that, and then we'll get into the list. I know some people say, well, what about, Tyreek Hill or Myles Garrett? The reality is, I think people that say that have an issue with the award itself more so than if they actually believe those people are the most valuable player in the league. I think that's usually how people view it. They just don't like the idea that it's a quarterback award every year, and I kind of agree. If it was up to me, I would probably create some sort of scenario where there's like in baseball, they have the Cy Young Award that goes to the best pitcher, and then an MVP award that can go to the best pitcher, but usually doesn't unless the best pitcher is exceptionally great. I kind of wish they did it that way. Get a Johnny Unitas Award, give that to the best quarterback, and then only give the MVP to the best quarterback if they're exceptionally great in a specific year. However, as it stands today, it says most valuable player, and your typical MVP caliber quarterback gives you a WAR of about 4.5 wins. Top 5 quarterback, usually it's around 4 wins. The defensive player of the year usually gives you a WAR of about 1 win. Wins above replacement about 1. So that's a massive jump, and even the 10th best quarterback is always going to be more valuable than the best non-quarterback. So, maybe a specific game, the most valuable player isn't always going to be a quarterback, but in a specific season, it's always going to be a quarterback. So that's why I have 10 quarterbacks. Let's get into the list now. Actually, real quick, just a couple honorable mentions. Matt Stafford and Brock Purdy both are not on my top 10 list, but yeah, I did consider them, so give them a shout out. But yeah, let's get into the list, starting with number 10. Number 10 is Jared Goff. A couple of statistics I put on the screen as well. The first one is always going to be where they rank in terms of Pro Football Focus grade. Second one is passer rating. Just a couple of stats to talk about. And yeah, Goff's been very good this season. Had a bad couple of weeks. I think he would have been higher on this list a couple weeks ago if I made it, but that definitely has knocked him down a little bit. Listen, in a good situation, he's very good. When you get him off his game, he can struggle a little bit more. That's what we've seen these past couple of weeks. I do think that there is potential if he can, light up the stat sheet at the end of the year. Maybe he could climb the rankings. I'm not sure if he can get all the way to number 1, but, he's had a very good year this year. There's no denying that. Number 9, maybe a hot take. It won't be the last. Trust me, I have some takes people are really going to hate on this list. But for now, yeah, if you think about it, you could make the argument that I'm too high on Jaylen Herz. He isn't top 10 in either Pro Football Focus grade or passer rating, and I should mention it's overall PFF grade, not just throwing the football, but if you run, that also is included. Jaylen Herz adds value with his legs, and I would argue adds more value than just what you would actually see, because it helps out in the running game. Just the threat of him running, him handing the ball off, adds more value than Jared Goff handing the ball off, because you usually have to use a defender to watch Hertz in case he still has the football and is running with it, right? So because of that, there is added value, and I do think he belongs on this list. But yeah, he's currently the favorite to win the award. Quite frankly, I think the only stat that he's at, he's number 1 in the league right now is team wins, and it shouldn't just go to the quarterback on the best team. He is great. I think Jaylen Herz is awesome, but top 10 quarterback this year, but I wouldn't have him as really close to number 1 right now. I just don't. Number 8, I have Justin Herbert, who has had a bad game or two this season. He's also had some spectacular games. He's another, kind of the opposite of Hertz, where the only real criticism you can put towards him is team wins, which I just don't value as much as some other people do. So, I think that the reason his team has been losing isn't his fault. I think he's really the only reason they've been competitive in as many games as they've been. First quarterback on this list to be top 10 in both PFF grade and passer rating so far on the season. So even the team stats are good this year. The offense has been good. It's just that, the defensive issues have been the main thing, and you could argue he doesn't get it done at the end. That maybe could be a knock. I didn't knock him on the list, but I know some other people maybe would. So maybe some people would have Hertz above Herbert because Hertz has a couple of late drives and Herbert doesn't this year. But I don't know. I think Herbert's added more value as a whole. I'll have him at number 8. Number 7, let's go with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, who I do think has taken that next step this season. He's been so consistent. And I think one of the issues with a guy like Lawrence is, when you're not in a loaded offense, which he isn't, 15th best passer rating, although he's tied for 7th best PFF grade, it puts him in kind of a situation where him just running the offense doesn't yield the results that someone like Brock Purdy just running the offense will yield, even though I think Lawrence has done a better job. He's protected the football well. He has just consistently put the ball in the right place, accurately and quickly. I think there's some other players who have maybe added more value in other ways than Lawrence, but there's not really a lot of knocks on Lawrence so far this season, so I have him at number 7. Number 6, here is where I put Lamar, who is currently 7th best, tied for 7th best in PFF grade and just 7th best alone in passer rating. And again, the passer rating stat, you could argue it should be higher or lower depending on, because, on one hand, hey, he runs the ball as well, so there's added value with that, but also his threat of running the football helps out the passer rating, so it goes both ways. Personally, I would say that it's more impressive than just 7th best because of his running ability, which again does factor into his PFF grade, but PFF, it tends to actually undervalue Lamar, so definitely I think you could argue Lamar could be up to even number 3. I wouldn't hate that. I do have him currently here at 6, but again, I think he's been great this year. Number 5, how about CJ Stroud, who has had a couple of bad moments, but he's, willed his team to certain victories. Obviously, that Tampa Bay game is the one you have to look at of I don't know if any quarterback this year has a game like that, or of just complete dominance to get his team a victory on a game that they otherwise would not have been competitive. And I do think he has had some missteps, which is why he's maybe a little bit lower than the top 4. But yeah, what a run for CJ Stroud, me having him as a top 5 quarterback this season, despite the fact that, he's a rookie. Just incredible stuff. Number 4 is Tua, and 4 is the number with Tua, because he's also 4th best in PFF grade and passer rating on the season. So definitely a unique player to talk about. Listen, for Tua, it's so interesting of him, because I think there's always the question of how much of it is the scheme around him, how much of it is the system around him. It certainly helps. It does. And it helps these stats as well, right? It helps the passer rating, and I think it helps the PFF grade when, your decision is easier when it's Tyreek Hill with no one within 10 yards. I have to say, though, he doesn't get enough credit for getting those guys open, with throwing at the right time and also using his eyes to get players out of position. He does that so well. To me, I think Tua has been really good this season. I'm willing to put him in the number 4 spot right now. Number 3, who would have thought? Dak Prescott. I've been probably lower on Prescott than most over the course of his career, because he hasn't played like this throughout the course of his career until now. This has easily been a career year. He's currently Pro Football Focus's number 1 graded quarterback, and in passer rating, he's number 2. And the only guy who is ahead of him is Brock Purdy, who didn't make my list. So because of that, he's first among players on the list in both of those 2 categories. So then why just number 3? Shouldn't he be number 1? Well, contrary to popular belief, I don't just look at statistics. I do watch the games. I do make my evaluations that way. And there's no denying just the, it's been an easy schedule. It has. And I think that's always a weird argument, because a lot of people will say, well, what are you supposed to do? You're playing that, that's the team you're playing. What are you supposed to do? And that's fair. They've done everything they're supposed to do. The reason why I have it at number 3 is, tough schedule coming up. I don't think the numbers are going to stay this good throughout the course of the season. I think they're going to take a hit. Now, if it's only a small hit, he could work his way up to number 1 on my list. But as of right now, who do I think is going to win MVP at the end of the year? That's how I'm viewing it. I think that he's probably going to go down the numbers a little bit, and number 2 and number 1. Again, I said that wrong. It's not who do I think is going to win MVP, because, I view this very differently than other people do. Jaylen Herz is number 1 in odds, and I have him at 9. But who do I think I will say should win MVP at the end of the season? I think my number 1 and 2 ahead of him, and even right now, I'd put the number 1 and 2 ahead of him, because he's been in a great situation so far. But he's still done the most of it. So if you think he should win MVP, I honestly don't hate that take. But there's a couple guys I like better. And this is going to make people mad. It is. But, that's what I do here on this channel. I give my opinions, love them or hate them. Number 2, I'm going Mahomes. I know. Listen, still 3rd best Pro Football Focus grade on the year, 10th best passer rating. I know that the numbers haven't been as good, and I think that's why people are going to still knock him. But you know what? When I watch him play, I'm still like, man, he's the best. I think he's the best quarterback in football. I do, even though I have him at number 2 this year. I do think there's been a quarterback a little better than Mahomes. But I think he's the best quarterback in football, and I see that on tape. He's been in a tough situation. The offensive line, the tackles, have struggled this season blocking. It hasn't been terrible, but it's not been good. The receiving core has really struggled to get open outside of Kelce, and even Kelce hasn't been typical Travis Kelce. And Mahomes has still made this a top 5 offense statistically. Like, he's been incredible this season, and I think he's not getting enough credit, insanely enough. I know everyone talks about, people always talk about Mahomes, but I do think that he should be very much in the MVP discussion, and you could argue should win it at this point. He's incredible. And again, in my opinion, the award shouldn't just go to who has the best passer rating. It shouldn't just go to who has the best record. It should go to who has been the best quarterback. And when I watch tape, he has been the 2nd best quarterback this season, but not number 1. And if the Mahomes take made people mad, the Allen take is going to make people more angry. I said this on the podcast, and people didn't really criticize it too much, so maybe it's not as hot of a take as I thought it was. But yeah, let's get into number 1. Josh Allen is my number 1 quarterback, the guy who I think should win MVP right now. Yes, I know he's thrown an interception in 8 straight games at this point. One of those was like a Hail Mary, and also he's, that's not necessarily the stat you want to look at. His turnover-worthy play percentage is really good this year. It's top 10 best in terms of turnover-worthy play percentage. He's actually been good at protecting the football. It's just he's been unlucky with turnovers. That's been the main thing. And if that turnover luck starts to flip, then the Bills are easily in a playoff spot at this point, probably. Allen had the bad game against the Jets, and that was on prime time, and that's kind of what's gotten this narrative going. Plus, the Bills haven't been as good this year, so I get it. But watching that Eagles game, I mean, you can't tell me watching that game that Jaylen Herz, if it was just that one game, that Jaylen Herz would deserve MVP over Josh Allen. Like, with all due respect to Hertz, who, again, I like a lot as a player, like, Josh Allen was on another level in that game. And he's been this way for most of the season, and a lot of times, like, I still think about that Tampa Bay game where, like, he was on his way to putting up insane numbers, and then the team kind of just takes the ball out of his hands in the second half and allows Tampa Bay to kind of get back in that game. Like, Josh Allen is the offense. They don't block well. Diggs is solid. I like Diggs, obviously. He's great, but, like, they don't get open as much as, any of these other teams do, and he's still, made this offense one of the best in football. The offense is one of the best in football as of right now, and it's entirely because of him. In my opinion, he's been the best quarterback in football. Does he have a chance of winning the award? Absolutely not. No chance. There's 0% chance. Maybe if he throws 5 touchdowns, no interceptions every game the rest of the way, and the Bills make the playoffs, but I don't think he's going to win it. I think he should, though. So, yeah, that's my opinion. That's how I view this. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I'm sure no one's going to really have any critiques. This is a perfect list. How could anyone criticize this one? No. Let me know in the comments below. Agree or disagree. I always love hearing from you. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.